Clint Eastwood's name echoes across Hollywood like a story carved into stone. A story about a man who kept fighting time, who kept reinventing himself, who kept giving the world something new in every decade. Today, as he stands in the quiet, reflective chapter of his life, people ask a simple question. How does one man survive this long? How does someone last in a place like Hollywood? And the biggest question, why? Hasn't he stopped yet? Clint Eastwood's journey is not the typical journey of a movie star. It is the story of someone born in a difficult era, someone nobody expected much from, someone Hollywood rejected in the beginning, yet someone who rose so high that even time itself couldn't catch him. His life is proof of one idea. Silence can be power. Discipline can be strength. And resilience can turn an ordinary person into a legend. Clint Eastwood was born in 1930. During one of the toughest periods in American history, the Great Depression, families were struggling, jobs were disappearing, and dreams were uncertain. His family moved constantly as his father searched for work. And through this unstable childhood, Clint developed a quiet, observant personality. He wasn't loud, he wasn't dramatic, he simply watched the world carefully, absorbing everything around him. Teachers remembered him as unusually calm and mature for his age. He wasn't the class clown. He wasn't the athlete. He wasn't the popular kid. He was just there, a tall kid with a quiet stare. No one imagined that this boy would one day become one of the world's most powerful cinematic figures after high school. Clint didn't have a big plan. He worked small jobs: lifeguard, paper mill worker, gas station helper, even a swimming instructor. He didn't dream of Hollywood. He didn't chase fame. Life simply carried him forward until destiny stepped in, when he returned from military service. Someone suggested he try acting because of his height and build. Clint didn't have training. He didn't have confidence. But he gave it a try. His early auditions were disasters. Casting directors said his voice was too soft, his acting too stiff, his expressions too wooden. Some even said he was too tall to fit in frame. But Clint had something that couldn't be taught: presence, a mysterious stillness, a quiet aura that pulled your attention even when he wasn't speaking. Slowly, he began landing tiny roles. Nothing special, nothing memorable. Then came a small break, a TV Western series called Rawhide. It wasn't glamorous, but it made Clint a familiar face in American households. Week after week, viewers saw his calm strength and natural charisma. Unbeknownst to Clint, someone far away in Italy was watching two directors Sergio Leone. Leone was working on a low-budget Western, a film nobody expected to succeed. But he needed a face that said more than words could, a face that could be silent yet powerful. And there, on television, he saw Clint Eastwood. Clint flew to Italy for a film called A Fistful of Dollars. No one knew this movie would change cinema forever. Clint barely spoke, yet every look, every movement, every moment held weight. His dusty poncho, his cigarette, and his piercing stare became instantly iconic. The film exploded in popularity. Then came for a few dollars more. Then the masterpiece, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Clint Eastwood was no longer just an actor. He was a phenomenon. The man with no name didn't just entertain audiences. He redefined the idea of what a hero could be. He became the symbol of the rugged lone wolf, the man who walks alone, the man who doesn't need to shout to be feared. Returning to America, Clint stepped into an entirely new era that shaped his legacy even further. The 1970s were turbulent. Crime was rising. Society was changing. People were looking for a different kind of hero, someone who challenged authority and stood up against a broken system. Clint delivered exactly that. He became Harry Callahan, the tough San Francisco detective, unforgettable as Dirty Harry. This wasn't a clean-cut hero. This was a man who operated in the gray, who faced danger without fear, who carried the weight of justice on his shoulders. The character sparked debates, criticism, praise, and controversy. But one thing was certain: Clint's grip on audiences was unshakable. He was now more than a superstar. He was the cultural face of the American antihero. But what happened next truly separated Clint Eastwood from every other actor of his generation. Instead of slowing down as he grew older, he transformed. Most actors fade in their 50s. Many retire. Clint Eastwood chose to evolve. He stepped behind the camera. His directing style was unique, minimal, precise, disciplined. No unnecessary dialogue. No wasted shots. No ego. Just pure storytelling. He trusted his actors, trusted the moment, and used silence as a powerful tool. His sets were famously calm and efficient. And then, the masterpieces began, Unforgiven, Dollar Baby, Mystic River, Gran Torino, American Sniper. These films didn't just entertain, they left emotional marks on audiences worldwide. His stories felt personal, grounded in real human struggles. He portrayed pain with honesty, redemption with sincerity, and conflict with depth. Even critics who once doubted him began to admire his wisdom and consistency. Clint Eastwood proved that he wasn't just a star who survived Hollywood. He was an artist who dominated it. Behind this legendary career was a surprisingly gentle, private man. Clint avoided scandals. He stayed out of unnecessary debates. He chose a quieter life, preferring music, nature, and simple routines. He loved jazz. He loved calm environments. He loved focusing on the work more than the spotlight to the world. He was the toughest man alive. To those who knew him, he was thoughtful, soft-spoken, and deeply disciplined. He never bragged about awards. He never begged for roles. He never chased publicity. He believed in showing, not telling, and that belief is what kept him going even when the world expected him to retire. While most filmmakers slow down, Clint continued making films well into his 80s and beyond, something incredibly rare in Hollywood. But then, time brings a certain kind of pressure. Fans know that one day, the world will see Clint Eastwood's final film. One day, the chair behind the camera will be empty. One day, Hollywood will feel the silence of his absence, and that truth is heavy yet. Clint doesn't think about endings. He moves forward with the same calm mindset he had in childhood. In one interview, he said a line that has become legendary: "I don't let the old man in." These words are more than just a quote. They are his philosophy, his shield, his life's secret. He refuses to let age dictate his purpose. He refuses to stop creating. He refuses to stop living. Even now, in an era dominated by young, fast-paced filmmaking, Clint remains a mountain. His eyes hold the stories of a century. His expressions carry decades of experience. His silence remains louder than modern characters' monologues. His legacy isn't just the characters he played. It isn't just the films he directed. It isn't even the awards and achievements. His true legacy is the impact he made on culture, on storytelling, and on generations of filmmakers and actors who grew up studying him. He redefined masculinity on screen. He redefined the Western genre. He redefined what it means to age with dignity, strength, and purpose. One day, the final chapter of Clint Eastwood's journey will be written. One day, the world will look back and realize what he meant to cinema. But until that day arrives, Clint walks forward slowly, quietly. First. His life is a reminder that greatness isn't born, it is built. With discipline, with patience, with resilience, with silence, he is Hollywood's last cowboy, the last giant of his era, the last man standing from a time when cinema was simple, powerful, and raw. And as long as he continues to work, there is one thing that will never change in Hollywood: respect. Clint Eastwood isn't just an actor. He isn't just a director. He isn't just an icon. He is a message, a lesson, a living blueprint of how to live life on your own terms. He teaches us that no matter how old you get, no matter how heavy time becomes, no matter how much the world changes, never stop moving, never stop dreaming, never stop fighting, and above all, never let the old man in. Clint Eastwood spent the final stretch of his career in a way nobody expected. As he grew older, he didn't slow down. In fact, he became even more determined to leave behind a kind of legacy that wasn't built on fame or applause, but on meaning. That was the part most people never understood about him. To the world, he was always the unstoppable cowboy who could handle anything. But privately, he knew time was no longer on his side. Every project mattered. Every moment carried weight. People around him noticed a small shift. Clint didn't talk much about awards, box office numbers, or Hollywood politics. Instead, he talked about peace, about forgiveness, about old friends he wished he had spent more time with. He still worked, but his priorities had changed. If a movie didn't say something real about life, he didn't want to waste a second on it. He refused offers that were flashy, expensive, and filled with action. Instead, he focused on stories that examined human beings, their flaws, their regrets, their choices, and the consequences that shaped them. But there was another reason for this change. Something Clint rarely discussed publicly. The truth was that over the last decade, he had quietly lost many of the people closest to him. Co-stars he had grown old with, directors he admired, crew members who had been with him for decades. Every funeral took a piece of him. Every goodbye reminded him how fragile life had become. Clint's family also felt the shift. For years, work had defined his schedule. He was always on a set, editing room, or writing. But in his late 80s and early 90s, he began spending more time with them. He laughed more. He listened more. He shared stories he had never told anyone about growing up poor, about his early struggles in Hollywood, about the nights when he truly thought he would fail. His children said those moments were the real Clint Eastwood. Not the tough guy from the movies, but the man who had spent a lifetime hiding his softer side. By this time, Clint had also become painfully aware of how the industry around him had transformed. The Hollywood he once ruled no longer existed. Studios were obsessed with fast money. Algorithms replaced instinct. Actors were chosen based on trends, not talent. And directors. Many of them didn't even get final cut anymore. That was something Clint could never accept. He believed the director should shape the story, not executives in offices who barely understood art, and he didn't shy away from saying it in private conversations. He would often mention how filmmaking had turned into a business of fear. Everyone was afraid to take risks. Everyone was afraid to offend. But risks were the very thing that made his films great. Clint always believed that a story should challenge people, make them uncomfortable, make them think, not just entertain them for 2 hours. Despite all this, Clint never became bitter. He never insulted the younger generation. He never put himself above others. Instead, he focused on what he could control, telling stories that felt honest, directing with simplicity and humility, and staying true to the craft that had given him everything. But even with his legendary discipline, age eventually started showing itself. On long shooting days, he moved slower. His hands sometimes trembled when he held a script. The crew quietly adjusted schedules to give him more time to rest. But Clint never complained, never asked for special treatment. He believed a director should endure the same hardships as his cast and crew. So he kept pushing himself, even when it was physically painful. There was one moment on set that several crew members would never forget. Clint was filming a quiet scene, nothing dramatic, nothing physically demanding. But suddenly, he paused, lowered his head, and took a deep breath. Everyone noticed. For a few seconds, it seemed like he was struggling. Someone walked up and asked if he wanted a break. Clint just smiled and said, "Let me finish the shot first. Then I'll rest." That was who he was. A man who finished what he started no matter what. As the years passed, Clint began reflecting more on the choices he had made in life, especially the ones he regretted. He wasn't perfect, and he knew it. His relationships had been complicated. His personal life messy. He had made mistakes. He had hurt people. He had chosen work over family more times than he liked to admit. But unlike many stars, Clint never pretended otherwise. He accepted his flaws. He accepted responsibility. And he hoped that the people he loved understood that he had tried. In his own imperfect way, one of the most emotional chapters of his later life came when he revisited the places where he had filmed his earliest roles. Standing in those old towns brought back memories he hadn't thought about in decades. Memories of being a young, unknown actor who wasn't sure if he would ever make it. Memories of the hunger he once felt, not for fame, but for opportunity. He remembered the long nights when he slept in cheap motels, the days when he drove from audition to audition, the moments when a single rejection almost broke him. He once said to a friend, "The struggle made me. Without those failures, I wouldn't have been anything." But the most astonishing part of Clint's late-life journey was his ability to stay grounded. He didn't buy mansions just to impress people. He didn't drown in luxury. He lived simply. He ate simply. He rarely attended Hollywood parties. If anything, he preferred quiet nights, long walks, nature, and simple conversations. Whenever someone asked him about retirement, Clint always gave the same answer: if you stop moving, you stop living. Yet deep down he knew that one day he would have to face the reality that he had outrun for so long. His body wouldn't allow him to keep directing forever. And when that day finally came, it wasn't dramatic. There was no big announcement, no emotional press conference. He simply stepped back, calmly, quietly, with grace, even after stepping away. Clint continued writing notes, building story ideas, and sketching character arcs. He didn't need cameras or sets. The storytelling never stopped. It flowed from him naturally, as if it was part of his DNA. His home became a sanctuary filled with memories, posters from old films, photographs from sets decades old, handwritten scripts stacked on shelves, and small souvenirs from every movie he ever made. Visitors said that walking into his house felt like stepping into a living museum of Hollywood history. Despite his age, Clint kept his mind sharp. He read constantly: history, biographies, philosophy, even new screenplays. Sometimes he stayed awake late into the night, lost in thought, trying to figure out what made people behave the way they do. That curiosity was what made him a great director. He didn't just film characters, he understood them. But as he crossed into his 90s, something else began to take over: gratitude. Clint became deeply thankful for the life he had lived, thankful for the audience that had supported him for so many years, thankful for the opportunities he had been given, thankful for every success, every failure, every lesson. His friends say that. In his later years, Clint laughed more than ever. He joked more. He enjoyed small things: the sound of the ocean, the warmth of the sun, a simple cup of coffee. The man who once played the toughest characters in Hollywood had become a soft-spoken, reflective, gentle presence. But there was one question Clint was asked many times toward the end: what does he believe his legacy will be? He always shrugged and said the same thing: "That's not up to me. I just did the work." Yet the truth is, his legacy is enormous. He changed the way movies were made. He proved that actors could become directors. He showed the world that simplicity can be powerful, that silence can speak volumes. And that age doesn't define creativity. His impact stretched across generations, from young actors who grew up watching his films, to filmmakers who studied his techniques, to fans who found comfort, courage, or inspiration in his stories. And even as the world changed around him, Clint Eastwood remained consistent, honest, focused, dedicated, a rare soul in an industry built on illusions. But the most emotional part of his story is what came after the camera stopped. In the quiet moments, when he sat alone with his memories, Clint often said that he didn't fear death. What he feared was leaving things unfinished. Not films, but people, relationships, apologies he never gave, words he never said. Those close to him revealed that in his final years, Clint made a conscious effort to reconnect with those he felt he had drifted away from. He apologized when he needed to. He expressed pride, love, and gratitude more openly. For a man who spent most of his life hiding his emotions, that was a transformation deeper than any movie role. Day by day, he made peace with himself. And by the time he reached the final chapter of his long, extraordinary life, Clint Eastwood had become something even more powerful than a Hollywood legend. He'd become a man at peace with his past, his choices, his mistakes, and his legacy.